Good morning, everyone. My name is Jo Stanley. I am honored to be here on behalf of the Ohio Environmental Council, Emerging Leaders, to welcome you today to this important conversation. As I consider the countless reasons this climate action plan and climate justice is important to me, my thoughts return again and again to the preschoolers who will be joining me in the Learning Garden when I return to work at Franklinton Farms after this meeting's close. I think about my own childhood and the privilege I had to grow up climbing trees, riding my bicycle, splashing in streams in my neighborhood. I think about my students who come to the Learning Garden having never climbed a tree before, who don't feel safe to ride their bicycles on the roads in their neighborhoods, who don't have access to clean, wild water to splash in. I know beyond a doubt they deserve the opportunity to play, to grow, to learn outside. They deserve a future with job opportunities that not only ensure the health and the well-being of their families, but also their communities. They deserve this just as all children in every neighborhood in our city do. In an excellent interview with Heather Taylor Measley from the OEC, Mayor Andrew Guenther voiced my sentiments quite well. I know I'm paraphrasing, but he said, "The immense challenges we are facing may very well force us to embrace, albeit scary, difficult, unknown, the change that we know we need to make in order to ensure a better, brighter, inclusive future for our children." I am grateful to each of you for prioritizing and investing in that future and in the health of our water, our air, and our land, so that they may ensure and continue to enrich our lives for generations to come. It is my honor to welcome now Mayor Andrew Guenther.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. Good morning. It is a great morning here in the city of Columbus. We're thrilled to be back here at the Linden Community Center. I want to thank the entire team here, Mario, and the entire staff for welcoming us back here. I want to thank Heather and Beau and Kenny and Joe for joining us here today to talk about this exciting day in the city's history. First time in our city's history are we sharing a climate action plan, a vision driven by the community over the last several months of engaging with so many community partners. I'm excited to join you today along with our outstanding community partners to unveil the first ever climate action plan, our collective roadmap to achieving a carbon neutral Columbus. Our focus is twofold: fully becoming a carbon neutral by the year 2050 with a minimum 45% reduction goal by 2030, and pursuing a broad range of sustainability solutions that are firmly rooted in equity and environmental justice. Why this plan and why right now? Simply put, the effects of global climate change are real, and they are directly impacting our city and our neighbors. Rising temperatures and rainfall totals, more frequent severe flooding, costlier home repairs and home energy bills, all of this and more is occurring and will occur with greater frequency and intensity if we don't act now to reduce our carbon footprint and support our most vulnerable residents. This is a social justice issue. Those who are most likely to be affected by the fallout from a changing climate are also the ones who can afford it the least. The impacts to residents in our opportunity neighborhoods are disproportionately greater than in other areas around our great city. We owe it to our neighbors and to our entire community to move forward with a sense of purpose, intentionality, and urgency. I'm pleased to share that despite 2 years of confronting one unprecedented challenge after another, our commitment to this work and our progress has not waned. For one, we implemented Clean Energy Columbus ahead of schedule, thanks to this voter-approved clean energy aggregation program that 75% of the voters supported at the ballot box. Our residents are now receiving energy from regional wind and solar sources, a vital step toward achieving carbon neutrality. The Climate Action Plan represents our next step forward, improving our environment and better serving our neighbors. It also is the product of a thoroughly collaborative and inclusive process. We think when more perspectives, minds, and neighbors are involved in a strategic direction, the better the plan is. It was created with extensive input from residents, business leaders, and the environmental community. It includes strategies to both mitigate and adapt to the effects we are currently experiencing and anticipate down the road. And it's based on the fundamental belief that we will meet the needs of this moment by transforming industries and empowering our neighbors in sustainable and equitable ways. My proposed 2022 operating budget includes $10 million for key components of this plan, support for clean energy jobs, energy efficiency initiatives benefiting our neighbors and businesses, and a new green fund to incentivize solar projects and affordable housing units. Other initiatives outlined in the plan include converting 100% of the city's passenger vehicles to an electric fleet by the year 2030, installing 50 megawatts of on-site residential solar energy, 200 megawatts of municipal solar, and 600 megawatts of commercial solar, all by 2030, and aligning our sustainability efforts to support the city's Link Us initiative, which is working to establish an equitable mobility system along 3 high-growth corridors across our region. We know transportation is the single largest source of greenhouse gas emissions, and providing viable, sustainable, and equitable transit alternatives for our residents will be key to reducing emissions overall. Work is already underway to fully realize these goals, many of which are laser-focused on our neighbors and infrastructure in our Columbus Opportunity neighborhoods. Again, ensuring that our efforts are real and relevant for those who otherwise lack the resources to navigate and withstand a changing climate through the lens of equity. This work will take time, and it will require constant vigilance. We are committed to tracking our progress, measuring our effectiveness, updating the plan every 5 years to incorporate new knowledge and account for evolving conditions. This plan is, in essence, a living document. Clear and consistent communication will also be key to our success. We need the active involvement of our entire community to realize the substance and the spirit of the plan, and I'm pleased to share that we are already seeing extensive collaboration on this front. We're excited about this plan, not just for the residents of Columbus and Central Ohio today, but the fact that we're going to grow by another 1 million people by 2050. We have to be purposeful and intentional. If we want dynamic and inclusive growth, it has to be done through the lens of equity and making sure it's sustainable. We're excited about the future of this community and this region. and this climate action plan is absolutely central to our larger equity agenda. To speak more about how this plan will improve quality of life in our opportunity neighborhoods, it's my pleasure to introduce Beau Chilton from Impact Community Action. Beau?
Thank you, Mayor Guenther. Thank you, Mayor Guenther, for your vision, your passion, your commitment, and for your partnership. I want to also give a special thank you to Beth Urban, our Chief Operating Officer at Impact Community Action, for leading our agency in these efforts. The consequences of climate change are felt the greatest by residents in our community who can afford it the least. That includes a disproportionate number of people from communities of color. It is imperative that all community members have a voice in the plan to address climate change in our city. Looking through the equity lens, we want to ensure environmental justice for all. The United States Environmental Protection Agency defines environmental justice as the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. This goal will be achieved when everyone enjoys the same degree of protection from environmental and health hazards and equal access to the decision-making process to have a healthy environment in which to live, learn, and work. At Impact, we believe that we must be in partnership with the people we serve. We believe in partnership over patriarchy or paternalism. We believe it is vital for the various sectors, public, private, nonprofit, to work together in partnership with the community to build a plan for a better and sustainable future that promotes shared prosperity. We have assisted in the development of this plan through hosting one-on-one conversations, focus group sessions with residents in Linden, Hilltop, Franklinton, Near East, Milo Grogan, and the University District neighborhoods, as well as the South Side, to provide input on the city's climate action plan. We also created Energy Advocates, the Energy Advocates program, which provides energy efficiency education, LED light bulbs, and other energy conservation measures in opportunity neighborhoods. We also participated in a number of community work groups focused on energy efficiency, green infrastructure, and clean energy workforce. Impact remains committed to leading equitable engagement for strategies to address climate change. We are so proud to be in partnership with the city and the various sectors in our community who have come together and realized that we are all in this together. And so next, to talk about the relationship in the private sector, Kenny Mcdonald from the Columbus Partnership.
Good morning, I'm Kenny McDonald, representing the Columbus Partnership and over 80 companies that partner with the mayor every day to move this region forward. I want to congratulate Mayor Ginther for the launching of the first ever climate action plan in the city of Columbus, and for once again having an ambitious plan for an ambitious city, whether it's transportation or housing or these issues of environmental sustainability. The city's leadership is not only important to the city and the residents of the city, but our entire region, the state, and even the country. Over the course of the last several years, our team at Smart Columbus has been working with the city to establish Columbus as a Midwest leader and in many ways a national leader in vehicle electrification. We started very boldly, but we started from a very low baseline. And in the last 6 years, we've just made tremendous progress, only stoking the fires and our ambitions to do even more in this arena. We'll continue to partner to not only do that, but much, much more as we think about how we could advance the city and the issues of environmental sustainability. As the business community, we must prioritize sustainability in our work to realize this vision to become more equitable and a more prosperous region, and in the end, a more competitive economy. As a city and a region, taking action to ensure environmental sustainable future will make us more competitive a market. It will attract talent, and more companies that look to relocate here have this as something that they're evaluating our market on. So I again address this as not only the right thing to do, but a true economic issue for our business community. We have great companies across the region, and there's too many to name that are putting the shoulder to the wheel on this like never before. JP Morgan Chase, AP, Cardinal Health, Huntington, and others are spending dollars. They're putting effort and time and making it a priority in the boardroom as we move forward. We support the creation of the Columbus Region Green Fund, a vehicle that will help us accelerate the transition to clean energy across our arena, not just for our nonprofits, for many of our companies across the entire city and the region. I'll end with saying that we've had bold goals before. It is indeed a living document. We'll have twists and turns in this effort. But once again, the City of Columbus is leading the way. Mayor Guenther is leading the way to provide that blueprint for not only our city and our governments, but our nonprofits and our businesses as well. Mayor Guenther, in the end, we applaud your work. Thank you for your leadership. I'll now turn for additional comments statewide from our partners, Heather Taylor Measley, the Executive Director of the Ohio Economic Council.
Good morning. As the Executive Director of the Ohio Environmental Council, I'm proud to be here today as the City of Columbus announces a bold path forward addressing climate change. As an organization, the OEC works every day to protect air, land, water, and democracy for all who call Ohio home. And we can't do that without addressing climate change. The impacts of carbon pollution are already being felt first and most significantly by the most vulnerable residents of Columbus. There was news yesterday from Climate Central that Ohio has increased an average of 4.5 degrees since 1970 during the winter. This has severe impacts on our residents, their health, their economy, and yes, our environment. They deserve ambitious and real action right now, rather than in the future. We commend Mayor Ginther for outlining an ambitious plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 45% by 2030 and 100% by 2050. And the plan includes concrete actions to improve our communities right now. The Climate Action Plan is a result of a long, transparent process in which community leaders, environmental advocates, and all residents had the opportunity to advocate for a bold final plan focused on equity. This process showed real leadership by our city decision makers and staff, and this plan reflects the passion for an equitable climate action plan that is present in our community. I know our staff and our partners felt truly heard as they prepared their substantial feedback to this plan. We reemphasize the call to be bold. To all the leaders here today, don't back down from what is necessary to prepare Columbus for a zero-carbon world. Lean into the ways that Columbus is already leading on climate, like Clean Energy Columbus, and continue to lead. Columbus and many other cities across Ohio are leading to fight against climate change when other policymakers in our state and federal level fail to act. Above all else, the OEC encourages Columbus to never forget the reason why we need a climate action plan. It's about combating the causes of the climate crisis, but it's also about ensuring we create an equitable and healthy future for all who call this city home. As we transition into a carbon-free future, we have the opportunity to be a model for how a city can transform in a way that benefits all residents, no matter their zip code. We all deserve a healthy climate. We all deserve clean air and clean water. Columbus's Climate Action Plan sets the city on a path towards bold transformation, and the OEC is absolutely excited to continue to work with the city to see this vision through. Thank you. Mayor?
Another great example of the Columbus way to have Beau representing nonprofit community action, Kenny, the private sector, Heather, the environmental community, all of us working together to establish the community's climate action plan. Couldn't be more proud of the work and the partnership. Columbus is a special place. We band together, no matter our interests or our industry, to solve pressing problems and to lift up our neighbors and create opportunities. We roll up our sleeves. We get to work undaunted by the scale or the nature of the task at hand. And we believe in the power of continuous improvement to deliver the very best results for all of our neighbors. We'll be happy to answer any questions from the press about the Climate Action Plan, and if you want to ask any questions about any other topic, I'll stick around to talk with you, but out of respect to our other guests here. Any questions about the Climate Action Plan from the press? You can ask me any question you want under the sun, but out of respect for our guests, I want to keep it to the Climate Action Plan this morning. Yes?
My question is about the cost. I think you said about $10 million. Where is that money coming from?
That is part of the proposed operating budget, and I believe, Brian, that's all coming out of the general fund, is that right? The general fund, primarily. The proposed budget, obviously, that has to be approved by council, and they've started their process, but that was part of my proposed budget that I unveiled last month. Yes?
Can you go into a little bit more detail about, as I look into the overview of the plan, how you want to transform buildings, transportation, waste is included. Can you go into a little bit more detail about that?
I might need you to repeat your question. I didn't hear it.
Can you just go into a little bit more detail about how the plan includes transforming buildings, transportation, waste, stuff like that?
I think the question is about emissions from building construction and operations of buildings. Is that correct? Yeah. So we put in place, I believe for the first time in the city's history, even the ability to evaluate the types of emissions and energy that's being emitted from our buildings, whether they be new constructed or existing. And so we're hoping to use that tool and that work to evaluate how we can work with the development community to build and develop in a more sustainable way moving forward. So I think a lot of these things come together. You have the Climate Action Plan. We're undertaking for the first time in 70 years the rewrite of our zoning code. And as I mentioned before, we're going to grow by 1 million people over the next 30 years, grew over 100,000 people just in the last decade. So you see this alignment here. The Climate Action Plan, looking at the emissions created by new construction and the way our building code informs that, and then the zoning code. We know that density can help us a great deal with our larger environmental concerns, but density is the #1 contributor and driver of affordability, which is also a major public policy issue. So you see this confluence and intersection of many different things happening at the same time, and that's where we're hoping to make the most progress. I'm sorry. Anybody else have anything to say on that front? Heather, you want to say anything about that?
One thing that's interesting, so the Ohio Environmental Council is a statewide organization. So we work in a lot of different places and we see a lot of different types of plans. The plan here is really unique, even from plans around the country, because it recognizes the intersectional nature of climate change and the environmental issues. Frankly, any community that is going to be sustainable and is going to be set up for growth has to consider everything from housing to education, to the environment, to transportation. And all of these things, if built well, can last and can strengthen the fabric of a community. And so what I see in this plan is not just the future about the traditional tree hugger issues, but really the future of the city, setting us up on strong foundation to grow in a way that is sustainable for generations, and not really that short-sighted thinking that can sometimes get growing communities in trouble. And so I think that's what's really exciting. and also the process by which people are listening, and that has set up a process for listening in the future that I also think could have an intersectional impact that I think is really quite strong and exciting about where we're headed in the future.
Any other questions from the press? Yes.
So part of this is transitioning the city's entire fleet to electric vehicles. My question is kind of twofold. So I know that there's already been some progress there. So how much of the city vehicles are electric now? And I mean, how do you plan to transition the rest? Are you going to replace vehicles as they reach the end of their usable life, or are you just going to start buying electric vehicles? When you have that opportunity.
Brian, you want to tackle that? Come on forward, Brian, so you can speak to the. This is Brian Clark, our Deputy Director, who's helped to kind of shepherd this work with Aaron Beck and others on the Climate Action Plan.
So the good news is the city will replace 100% of its passenger fleet between now and 2030. So we'll be able to build into our replacement plan EVs, so zero emission vehicles, including electric vehicles.
And I think it underscores, and I think Heather spoke to this as well, having this bipartisan infrastructure package signed by the president just a few weeks ago, and conversations we've already had with Secretary Buttigieg and others, the significant investment they're going to make in electric vehicle charging stations around the country. The fact, because of the partners behind me and the greater community, as a community, not just as a city, we were below the national and Midwest average for electric vehicle adoption before the Smart City Challenge Award. We're now outpacing both of those. And so having this climate action plan, the federal infrastructure package, aligned with the Link Us initiative, the rewrite of the zoning code, there's so many places that we think there are credible opportunities here to promote equity, sustainability, and prosperity for Wall as we grow by another third in the region over the next 30 years. Thanks, everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, I am too.
Thank you, Steve.